Welcome to another episode of the
The play
PlayCallers.
callers.
This is the Super Bowl edition. I am, as always, one half of the dynamic duo, Stephen Boss, joined as always by my co-host, the one and the only.
Your boy Cool McCain. Woosah.
So just a quick heads up for anybody tuning in to join us live right now. We are actually pre-recording this episode. This is the Saturday before, not the Saturday before the Super Bowl, but the Saturday before that. So a lot may have happened by the time you guys actually see this show that we won't be talking about tonight. If so, my co-host will be in the comments chatting with you. So if any big stories or anything comes up during the course of the week and you guys want to jump in the chat and talk about that, cool, we'll be there to talk with you guys about that. So don't get weirded out by the whole Matrix effect of him being on screen and in the chat with you at the same time.
That's what I do.
He's everywhere, man. He's like Visa, everywhere you want to be.
In some places you may not want.
Cool Visa McCain. That's your new name.
I'm gonna pass on that. Hard pass.
I tried. You know, only here on the Play Callers can you reject nicknames. Apparently,
Hard pass. Not only just reject, hard pass.
So, man, the Super Bowl is all set. We know who it's going to be. It's going to be the, as you like to call them, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Andy Reid Kansas City Chiefs. So it's a matchup that we have seen a couple times over the last couple years with the Chiefs going up against the Patriots. So we've had an opportunity to see that a little bit, and then earlier this year we got a preview of this actual game. So some familiarity between these two teams should make it a pretty interesting game, I think.
Another thing you have to look at is we have Patrick Mahomes, which is the guy that everyone feels is going to be the quarterback of this next kind of generational quarterbacks, against the grizzled veteran, the greatest of his generation, as most like to say. Some go further, but we'll stop there. Tom Brady. So it'll be interesting to see the guy that's kind of in the twilight of his career versus the up and coming chosen one, I guess, for sake of a better way to put it. So it's a lot of different storylines in the game. You've got the receiver from Tampa, forgot his name, Scotty Hall, I believe
Miller.
it is.
Yeah, Scotty Miller.
Yeah, Miller. Saying that he's faster than Tyreek Hill. Doesn't really matter if he is or not. I just think it's good that for Scotty Miller, you just find some way to kind of take the pressure off. You're going into the biggest game of your career, and instead of worrying about it, focusing on it, you're doing something as petty as saying that you're faster than Tyreek Hill, which for me means you're there for fun. You're kind of, you're just there to have a good time and see what happens. So, but it could be good to see if Tyreek Hill decides to try to use it as motivation. I don't think he would need any extra motivation, but we don't know how the mind of diva wide receivers works, and Tyreek Hill definitely would fit into the profile of that. So we'll see. You have two groups of tight ends. One, of course, really only needed mention, Travis Kelce. Clearly one of the top tight ends in the league. You've got Rob Gronkowski, Cameron Brate on the other side. Gronkowski is another guy more in the twilight than the beginning of his career, but still able to make plays when needed. And then Brate is another guy that helps them out quite a bit with making big plays. So a lot of different storylines. We'll go through some other ones, throughout the show while we're with you guys here today. But just getting you in the mind state of where we're going here. Just, be prepared.
And you did mention Tyreek Hill, and definitely I think another really big part of this Super Bowl is going to be the show off between these two receiving cores. This might actually be the two best receiving cores we've seen meet in the Super Bowl in a really long time, if not ever.
Yeah, with quality complementary running games as well,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact. So,
Yeah.
it's definitely going to be one of the more offensive Super Bowls I think we've seen in a while, for sure.
Yeah. And neither one of these defenses are exactly bad. These are two good defenses too. So should be I think it's gonna be a really fun game to watch. I'm kind of hoping that the Meteor wins, but that's that's just because I can't stand the Chiefs after last year, and I know you're not an Andy Reid fan in the first place, and we both hate Tom Brady. So I can't really root for anybody. I'm just going to basically hope for a really fun, competitive game. That's really what I'm hoping to get out of this.
Well, I don't necessarily hate Tom Brady as much as I just feel like, due to some of the things that have been proven, he's kind of allowed to not have any part of those things, right? Like we say, oh, the Patriots cheat. A lot of people say the Patriots cheat, but they say how great Tom Brady is. Tom Brady was a quarterback during that whole cheating period. A lot of the things that we are praising Tom Brady for happened, these things happened on his watch. If you can look me in the eye and try to tell me that he had no knowledge, he didn't know about Deflategate, he didn't know about the whole thing that got brushed under the rug with taping Super Bowls.
Mhm.
Hmm. So that's my thing. Like, not necessarily to diminish him and say, oh, he wouldn't have been good without cheating, but we don't know that because cheating happened. It was confirmed on multiple occasions, and it was shame on you guys. We'll help you win some more. You know, I think what you see happening in baseball right now, with a lot of those guys that were uh, pretty much in that steroid era that people suspect or know use steroids and how they're being blackballed from Hall of Fame. Let's see if cheating has the same effect when it's time for Tom Brady to go into the Hall of Fame, or Bill Belichick to go into the Hall of Fame, or some of those really great players from those cheating Patriots teams. That's kind of where I look at it at, because I really believe very strongly that an even playing field, as much as possible, is the fair way to win. If I'm cheating and winning, then I may not have needed to cheat, but I took the shortcut. So somewhere inside of me, I'm like, I needed that to win. To me, that slightly diminishes your accomplishments. So that's my issue with everyone that is getting a lot of props from being on that Patriots team, for all those years. And Brady was on for all of that. So that's kind of where I sit with him.
Yeah. I mean, not just that, but I look at it from this standpoint. First of all, you mentioned the cheating, and Brady, not only does he get a pass on a lot of that stuff, but people also neglect to recognize the fact that the first couple of Super Bowls, when he really wasn't that great, that he was carried by that defense, he was carried by special teams, and by the cheating. We have to account for the fact that some of that cheating helped Tom Brady maybe get that first, even that second Super Bowl win. So you have to account for that kind of stuff when you're looking at his overall numbers. But the thing that kills me about it is, because you asked the question, is this something that they're when they time comes time for them to go into the Hall of Fame might impact them? I'm gonna tell you it's not. And the reason I know that is, even though Brady gets a pass on it, people recognize it as the Patriots as a whole, you still hear the phrase used over and over again in a very glowing way, the Patriot way. So
Yep.
clearly they don't care. The Patriot way is cheating, and the NFL has basically put their stamp of approval on it.
I mean, I can't disagree with you. It's unfortunate, and like I said, it's not a personal affront to Tom Brady or Bill Belichick. It's the fact that you were highly involved in cheating for a lot of years,
Yep.
and you're being treated as if it didn't happen, like,
Yep.
truthfully. And that's kind of where I get like, really, we're just going to pretend that that did not happen.
Yep.
And that's where I look at it and say, man, it doesn't even matter. You can't have a conversation with me about this dude's stats overall and how many Super Bowls he's had unless you're going to acknowledge that there was cheating done on multiple of those. And that's, kind of where I sit with that. Um, but this is an opportunity for him to come out on a different team, and let's see what Tom Brady has.
Yeah.
He's going against a defense that definitely is going to be licking their chops. I'm sure that Tyrann Mathieu is going to be very, very excited. I'm sure he's going to be ready. I'm sure Travarius Ward is going to be ready for those um, deuces that Brady threw last game. And I feel confident in saying in this game, if you go out and did what you did last game with those 3 interceptions, that there should be a different outcome.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at Tampa, what I see is a team who has a very explosive offense. They have these big physical receivers. They have guys who can go out, create space. They have guys who very complementary to each other. You have some speed guys who can go deep. But you just have all these different components on this offense. And if I'm a Bucks fan, the thing that concerns me is that even with all of these weapons, that Tom Brady has been throwing quite a few interceptions as of late. And, this is not just last week. This is something that's happened a couple times. So it's definitely something that would be concerning. And I agree with you in the fact that that's something that has to get limited if Tampa Bay wants to stay in this game. Because if you go out there and you give Patrick Mahomes 2 or 3 extra opportunities, you're going to find yourself down 14 to 21 points. Just real talk.
Very quickly as well. And there won't be any let you back in the game this time around. You're going to be out of it and you're going to stay where you were at, which is losing. I mean, it's let's be honest, man. Green Bay, they got the interceptions, but they weren't able to click things like they should have been. Something was going on. We talked about it on the last show, but something was happening. They weren't clicking offensively like they should have from the beginning of the game. I'm not going to try to speculate. I'm just going to say it clearly was. Yeah. But I don't foresee that happening with Kansas City. And the other part of that is with the way Kansas City plays, they will go out and BS for the first half and then come out and blow you out. And even if you have a slight lead on them, that's not good enough when those weapons get going. You add the Edwards-Helaire back. Le'Veon Bell is going to be there. They're going to have the other Robinson kid because there's one that opted out. Then they have another one that's playing running back. The other Williams. I said Robinson Williams. So that's going to be interesting. So there's going to be a lot there, and you're going to have to be able to handle it. You look at weapons, right? You got Mahomes and all the things he does. Talked about the running backs. You got Tyreek Hill. You got DeMarcus Robinson. You got Sammy Watkins. You got McCole Hardman. You've got a lot of different weapons. Of course, you have Travis Kelce. You got a decent line. You've got a guy that can make things happen back there that looks healthy. Like I said, I really did not think he was going to be able to come back after what I saw in that game. But he did, and he looked like himself. So he's going to be dangerous for them, and they're going to have to find a way to limit him for an entire game. Not just a half, but an entire game. And that's something that no one's been able to do so far, which is why they have a lot of these tight wins, but they are winning.
Yeah. Now, I will throw in and say everyone's talking about Tom Brady's interceptions, but not a lot of people are actually talking about Patrick Mahomes' interceptions. And he's had quite a few himself, too. And one thing that I think these quarterbacks have in common when they're having these turnovers is because they both tend to make poor decisions when they get pressured. And that's been, the kind of the thing with Tom Brady's whole career. Most of the time, guys don't get a chance to pressure him. He's getting the ball out really fast. But in the times that we've seen Tom Brady get pressured, that's when he makes mistakes. We saw it in the Eagles Super Bowl. We saw it when he played the Giants. We've seen it a couple other times in his career. When he gets pressured, he does not play well. And we saw last year with Patrick Mahomes, the 49ers defense was able to essentially shut him down for 3 full quarters. And, they were able to do that because they were able to get pressure on him. Now, at some point, when your offensive line just becomes allowed to hold people all day, it's going to get point where you'll get any pressure on you anymore. And so you're going to be able to start throwing the football well. But what we saw for those first 3 quarters was he was not able to really plant his feet. He wasn't able to be as effective, make those miraculous throws that he normally makes. Because remember, he had multiple turnovers in that Super Bowl. So we talk about Brady's interceptions, but if I'm a Chiefs fan, I have the exact same concern on the other side. Maybe even more so because that Tampa Bay defense is pretty good, and Mahomes has a tendency, even when he's under pressure, to try to pull that magic out. And well, that's where the Brett Favre comparisons start to come in. So
Well, I mean, that kind of loops back to what I was saying earlier. The thing with Kansas City is you're going to be able to get pressure on them and subdue them a lot in the first half. We saw that since the Super Bowl last year. The issue or the problem, the concern is doing it for an entire game,
yeah,
and that hasn't happened. So Patrick Mahomes for a quarter and a half, 2 quarters, playing really well is dangerous enough to beat anyone. And that's the real truth of the matter. So you're going to get some turnovers from Mahomes, but he's more able to mitigate those turnovers with other plays. And I think that Tom Brady is at this juncture of his career. Not to say that it can't happen, not to say that Tom Brady can't go out and make amazing throws and amazing plays after a turnover and kind of get the points back on the board. But if we're looking at age, line, where we're at as far as athletic ability, ascension versus decline, you would be more confident saying that Mahomes is going to be the one that can account for those things. And based on what we've seen from them in the past, they find a way in the second half, third quarter, normally some point in the third quarter, to start to get everything in gear and be that team that we know they can be. Now, the concern, if you are Kansas City, in my opinion, is if you start off slow on offense and defense. Because if you're starting out slow on offense like you've been doing, but your defense is hitting, then you'll be fine because you won't give up too many points. But if you go out there and you have a bad first half, which they have done, or a bad first quarter, and you get down 14-0, does that change what you're doing? Does that change your defense? Does that make them want to try to make a play to get back in the game? Does that make you press too much as the quarterback? Does that make the line try to do too much and start to get penalties, get frustration? Those type of things, I think, would be a concern because in your mind, you're playing Tampa Bay, but we all know Tom Brady's over there, and that's the one piece that's kind of like, that's the one thing I think is really interesting, and it will be interesting to see if Eric Bieniemy's going to get a little pissed off because he didn't get that opportunity this year to be a head coach. And if he says, "I'll show you guys I can coach. I'll show you guys I can call plays. I'm calling these plays, and we're going to kill them." Maybe that's his motivation. Maybe Andy Reid calls the plays, and he just stands over there and looks stoic. Who knows? But these are things that could happen that could benefit him. Now, on the flip side, if you're Tampa Bay, you are also in a situation where, like you mentioned, you have a lot of large, able-bodied receivers. Goodwin is a guy that can run routes, do almost everything. Evans is a deep ball guy. You can throw balls up, he can catch them. I don't know if Antonio Brown's back yet or not. I think that's still kind of, up in the air. But obviously, if he's back, there's another weapon. We talked about the 2 tight ends. The running backs also do a very good job of catching the ball in the backfield and running, as well as pounding when needed in the run game and getting big plays when needed. So you have a lot offensively on Tampa Bay as well. And that's the reason they are the other team in the Super Bowl. A lot of people are saying Kansas City's the favorite. I wouldn't argue with that. I haven't seen the line yet, but I would assume it's pretty tight. Probably less than 3 points. Because at the end of the day, these teams are pretty evenly matched offensively. Different but matched. Kansas City's bringing the speed, the downfield threat. They have the big banging body in their tight end, whereas you kind of have the opposite to an extent with Tampa Bay. You got the big receivers. You have the fast guy in Scotty Miller, but those tight ends, they are bigger guys, but they're more make catches, open field, try to make plays more than catch it, take 5 hits and get 20, 25 yards. So you have a good dichotomy there that still work well. I will just be interested to see who can put their stamp on the game and who can make the other team play the way that they want to play and put their dominance on it.
Yeah, just a heads up for you, man. You were cutting out in and out pretty bad there. I heard most of what you had to say, but your mic was scratching up against your beard quite a bit. So,
oh my, oh me, oh my.
Yeah. So, just sound like you were over there mixing records.
Hey, man.
But yeah, the thing is, the, this Super Bowl is going to be interesting because you do have a ton of weapons, like you said, on both sides, and both
Right.
offense and defense has a lot of guys. So really, to me, this, and I know it's a little bit cliche to say it, but this is one of those times where you really do have to say, I think this is one of those Super Bowls that comes down to two things. Number one, who makes the least number of mistakes, and number two, who has the ball last. Because this is probably not going to be a blowout one way or the other, unless somebody goes out there and really makes a lot of mistakes and just gives the other team ample opportunities. This more than likely is going to be one of those come down to the wire kind of things. So you're going to have to go out there and execute and make plays on every single possession. And if you don't, well, this might not end up well for you. That's just, it's going to be one of those kind of Super Bowls. I think when I look position by position, I give Kansas City an edge in coaching because I think Andy Reid is a better coach. I also give Patrick Mahomes a slight edge just because he's a lot younger. And like you said, he's shown that he can make those mistakes and bounce back from them. But it's not a huge advantage, not as big as you would think, because Tom Brady is a guy who's been there. You're not going to throw anything at Tom Brady he hasn't seen. So I think that it's not as big of a deficit as some people might want to think it is at this point. Receivers, I'm actually going to give a little bit of an edge to Tampa. And when I say receivers, I'm including tight ends in that. And the reason I'm going to give them a little bit of an edge is because they just have a few more guys than what Kansas City does. Kansas City has some really dynamic weapons, but I think Tampa has just a little bit more. And then when you look at the running games, I'm actually going to give the edge to the Chiefs over there. Offensive lines, I think both have pretty decent offensive lines. If I were to guess which defense I think is going to be able to get more pressure, I feel that Kansas City's defense is going to probably be able to get a little bit more pressure than Tampa's is. Although both defensive lines, I do expect to get some pressure. Okay, I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of some of those or some of the other position groups.
Well, I'll say wide receiver, definitely you're going to want to go Tampa Bay. I think Antonio Brown is a difference maker there. If you want to include tight ends or not, I mean, I think he's the main reason why you would say Tampa Bay, because you're looking at Goodwin, Evans, you got Scotty Miller in there making some plays. You also have, of course, the two tight ends we talked about. So I think when you add Antonio Brown to that definitely gives the edge to, Tampa Bay in that group. I actually swing opposite of you in running backs. I think Fournette and Ronald Jones are both guys that will get the tough yards. They're like two hungry bulldogs that just finally ate for the first time a few weeks ago. Just aggressive. They did they had a big part in Green Bay losing by them being able to not have a great statistical game, but when Tampa Bay needed a first down, they could hand the ball off and they were getting them. And I think that's something that Edwards-Helaire is going to morph into a little bit more. Le'Veon Bell, he's still questionable. I'll assume he's going to play for the sake of argument at this point. Darrell Williams, he's had some good spots. Another rookie. So you're looking at two rookies and questionable Le'Veon Bell as the running back room for Kansas City. So I'm going to actually give that to Tampa Bay. Coaching, if we're talking head coach, I think I would lean toward Bruce Arians. And the reason being, Bruce Arians clearly does not care. Like, he's not here to be like, I'm going to say what's right, the right things. He showed that from the beginning of the year. I don't care if it's Tom Brady behind center. I don't care if it's Jameis Winston. I don't care who it is. I'm the coach. If you play bad, I'm going to tell you. If you don't execute the offense the way I want, I'm going to tell you. I don't care if you don't like it. I respect that to an extent with him. It takes the right quarterback and the right team to be able to respond to that. But I think he has that. And I think that he's going to be aggressive. I think he's going to come out and want to win this game. And he's going to try to do things that he knows Tom can do. And he's going to try to do what he can to help mitigate Kansas City's defense. Um, Quarterback, I do have to agree with you. I mean, I think it's a little bit more of a gap than you do, but I think it pulls itself back when you think of the experience factor. Mahomes has been to the Super Bowl once. Brady's been there quite a few times. I think this is his 10th time.
Yep.
So clearly in this particular game, I have to go with the guy who has that veteran experience. Line wise, I like them both. I'd actually probably say on the strength of how well Edwards-Helaire, Williams, and Bell have ran the ball with that team, that I'd probably go with that line a little bit more because of that running, the run blocking they've been able to do. And not that Tampa Bay has been bad at it, but just if I'm putting the two groups together. Because Edwards-Helaire has missed some games. He didn't have 1,000 yards, but he's had some monster games this past year when they were really opening up holes for him. Bell's had some good runs. Darrell Williams had some good ones. So Damian Williams, that opted out may not have worked out for you, buddy. Just want to put that out there. When you look at defense, I definitely would say when you look at Tyrann Mathieu, Daniel Sorensen as their safeties, and then you look at their cornerbacks, Javarius Ward, which I mentioned earlier, and Antonio Hamilton, I think we're looking at a good group. And then you got Breeland as another corner that they have in there. Hitchens in the slot. So you have a lot of guys that are not necessarily the number one guy back there in that secondary, but a lot of guys that play well together, and they're a little bit interchangeable. So if you need to bring Breeland in on certain plays or in certain formations, you can do that. If you need to have other guys do different things, you can do that with what you have there. And I think that makes a really huge difference in what they're able to do. So I think they have the edge there. We're talking the front four or the front seven. Excuse me. I'm going Tampa Bay. There's no question about that.
Yeah, when I look at the two front fours, I think that Tampa has more talent, but the Chiefs are sneaky good about the way they get pressure on people, and they're pretty consistent with it. So I'm not necessarily sold that I want to say Tampa, even though I would say they're the more talented front seven. I don't know that they're the better front seven, if that makes sense. And a lot of that comes down to, coaching and what schemes they're running and the things they're able to do. But I think that those two are pretty close. That position is pretty close in terms of the two teams. So it'll be interesting, man. But I know we want to leave some time here to talk about all the quarterbacks that might be on the move this offseason too. So let's go ahead and throw in our picks for the Super Bowl. I will let you go first, sir.
Well, I've said pretty much this is my worst nightmare. I don't want either of these teams to win. I don't want Andy Reid getting another ring. I don't want Tom Brady getting another ring. One of those two guys are going to get one because that's how things have shaken out. But if I put everything aside and I look at what I see on the field, if I look at, offense, defense, special teams, who has the ability to make those explosive plays, who's going to not get, based on what I've seen so far, who's going to not say, you know what, we're having a bad game. We need to try to press to get back into it. I'm going to have to go Kansas City, and I'm actually going to go Kansas City by 7, a full touchdown.
Yeah. When I look at it, I look back at the Week 12 matchup, which was a 3-point game. Both teams played pretty well. So these guys are familiar with this. I expect it to be a tight game. But I think when I look at what it ultimately is going to come down to, and like I said earlier, I think it ultimately comes down to who makes the least number of mistakes and who has the ball last. My question for Tampa is, outside of Tom and Gronk, you don't really, well, I guess in Antonio Brown, you don't really have anybody else that's been to this level before. Whereas Kansas City's entire roster pretty much was there just last year. So you have that familiarity, you have that comfort with the situation. Now, something we did not talk about, but I think is worth noting, is with the game being in Tampa, the travel schedule, everything about it is going to be so much easier for Tampa. They're not going to have the usual stress of Super Bowl week to have to account for. But I'm almost wondering if that might backfire because they might be a little bit too relaxed. Whereas Kansas City is going to be able to kind of just go. They're going to be able to get away from all the distractions of home. They're going to be able to get locked in and get focused. And Tampa is going to still have the distractions of being home. And ultimately, I think that could be the thing that puts Kansas City over the top. So I'm actually choosing Kansas City just because I think that when it comes down to it, that little difference might be what leads to one or two extra mistakes by Tampa that Kansas City is going to be able to capitalize on and win this game.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't really bring up the home field advantage. I honestly don't think it's really much of a home field advantage because it is because of the magnitude of the game, and like you said, they don't have any many players that have been in that situation before. But if anything, it's probably a negative, which is probably why it's never happened before that someone actually played in their home stadium um, in a Super Bowl. But I will say that, travel wise, it may be easier. But again, you're still having to keep a schedule. You're still home. You've still got family members, friends, everybody kind of pulling on you. Whereas if you're Kansas City, once you get there, and stuff is shut out, we're at the hotel, we're doing our thing. We're focused on trying to win this game, doing media days and everything, and practice and trying to win. Whereas you're focusing on something that's never had to be focused on before, which is family, friends, and all those other things, that could distract you. But I think you got Tom Brady, and it seems like a lot of the guys look up to him, kind of see him as that leader, that maybe even like almost like a father uncle figure to them. So they'll listen, but I do think that the mistakes are going to be the integral part, and I do believe that it's going to be easier for Kansas City to focus. And even though they're going in as the favorites, by Vegas standards, like you said, they're not the home team.
Yeah.
If you're smart, you're Andy Reid, you're ex enemy, you're the other coaches, coordinators, you're kind of looking like this is our chance to spin this in their minds and say, hey guys, we're having to play a home game against these dudes in the Super Bowl. Whatever Vegas wants to say, that they think that they're going to beat us in Tampa Bay. So we don't want to be the team that loses to the home team to their first time there. So,
Yeah.
that could work in Kansas City's favor as well. So we'll see how it goes. But there you have it, guys. Our official Super Bowl picks. We're both going with Kansas City. If Tampa Bay does pull it out, I wouldn't be too surprised. But based on what I'm thinking is going to happen, I'm unfortunately picking Kansas City.
Yeah. There was no way to really pick a winner, one that we would consider the winner, anyways. So, man, we do got about 25 minutes here left. So I know the other thing we want to talk about is the quarterback carousel. I believe by the count that you gave me the other day, we have about 12 quarterbacks who could be on new teams next year, and I don't even think that includes the rookies, right? Or were you including the
Correct.
rookies in that count?
No, these are guys that are in the league now that are either free agents or there's been a lot of speculation about them possibly being traded. Um, and I did leave a couple of names off the list, but there were a couple more that could have been added. But essentially, the list that I have, and we can just take them, one by one. Deshaun Watson was, of course, the first name. Clearly, a lot going on with him. It's safe to say it's going to be before the season starts that he's going to be traded. He's going to be traded. I would be very surprised if he's not traded. If he's not traded, then 90% of the information we've been getting is wrong. And I don't see 90% of it being wrong. So I'm very confident. I'm about 95 to 99% confident that he's not going to be a Houston Texan when the season starts. Heck, when the new year starts, he may not be.
Yeah, when I look at this, I look at it from the standpoint that there is so much smoke around this whole situation that the fire inside the building must be like 1,000 degrees.
It's lit.
But here's the thing. If there is a organization that is so incompetent that they would actually put their foot down, draw a line in the sand, and say, we're not going to let this happen. We're going to keep you because you were stupid enough to sign an extension with us. You know, you knew we were incompetent. Then it is the Houston Texans. So while I fully expect him to get traded, I'm actually not going to be shocked if they decide that they're going to refuse to trade him. And then it's going to be interesting to see what his next move will be. Is Deshaun Watson willing to sit out this season if they refuse to trade him? That's a lot of money that you're losing. You know, where do you want to draw your line in the sand at? You know, it's like what is going to be that turning point here? Because I wouldn't be surprised if they're foolish enough to try to ride this out instead of just taking on a first round draft pick that somebody would be willing to give them.
I'm gonna just respond with this simply. So, by all accounts, every insider I've heard from, interviews I've seen him do, interactions I've seen with Deshaun Watson, he's considered a nice guy. He's considered a guy that doesn't really, ruffle the feathers, doesn't really, go against the flow. Even, back to his now very cocky college coach, nothing but praise about personality, him being a team player and all those things. For that type of individual to say, I'm not going to play for this team, trade me not once, not twice, but at least 3 times. That was a little shout at LeBron, by the way. I would have to say that something's going on. What I would surmise by what we're seeing and hearing is, there were probably assurances made when he signed the contract that, we're going to be making some changes next year. We're going to include you in the conversation. Because see, what some people try to say is, Deshaun Watson, he thinks he should have the final say on who's this, on who's the coach, who's the general manager, who's this, who's that. No, but when you have a superstar quarterback or a superstar player and you're making major organizational changes, new GM, new coach, which means a new coaching staff, you want to include that guy at least in the loop. And what that means is, hey, Deshaun, we're thinking about doing this guy. Deshaun has an opportunity to say his piece. Whether you listen to what he said or not, that's up to the organization, but you allow him that opportunity. You hired a general manager, you didn't talk to him, you just went out and hired someone. And again, not saying that you change what you're going to do because of what he says, but I do believe he's earned the right to at least voice his opinion in that situation. You don't do that. Okay. Then he basically comes out and says, I want to be traded. You kind of brush it under the rug. You keep going. You keep trying to talk to him. He doesn't want to talk to you. You've got other former players saying the way that they do things is not right. You want to get out of there. They don't have the right respect. They don't treat people the right way. It's not cool there. Right? You don't just have DeAndre Hopkins. You have Andre Johnson who stayed there, played his whole career there for the most part. So here's what you got to understand if you're looking at the situation from the outside, or if you're looking at the situation as Houston as well. You have a guy who's not going to play. Wherever his line in the sand is, where his line in the sand is. I can't tell you what it is. From what he said, I'm willing to believe that he would be like, you know what, man? I'll sit out if I have to. I'm not coming. I'm not reporting. I will not step foot in the Houston locker room again. I'm not going to do it. I don't know if he's going to do that or not, but if I felt as strongly as it seems he feels, I would do that. So I think Houston can be ignorant and not make the move, but you're only hurting yourself. At the end of the day, you have to face the reality that he's not going to be there. And your poor new coach, you're going to have to break it to him as well because he hasn't faced the reality.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. And if we've talked a little bit about this on the show in the past, but I think a lot of people maybe don't really think about this in depth. When you think about Deshaun Watson, you had not just a franchise quarterback, because there's one thing to say you're going to take a franchise quarterback and, ask for their input. There's been plenty of franchise quarterbacks that have never had input on the general manager or the coach. So it's not some kind of requirement. But this situation was because you had a guy who you wanted to extend out his contract. It's perfectly reasonable to believe, as you hit on, that some kind of assurances were made about what the future of the program was going to be or the organization was going to be. At that time, I don't think they had fired Bill O'Brien just yet, but there should have been some conversation about, okay, if there's changes in the future in terms of the coaching or the GM, you know, what's going to happen with that. And they were like, oh, we'll give you some opinions on that. You'll be able to let us know what you think. There were some kind of assurances made because I don't think that Deshaun Watson, he seems like a very intelligent guy. So I don't think he would go and sign an extension without some kind of assurances as to what was going to be going on long term with the organization. Now, I'm more than happy to say, Sean, that was very foolish of you to believe in an organization that you clearly could see from the inside is so poorly run. You should have never trusted anything they told you. But that aside, that's what I think has probably happened is that there's some assurances made to get him to sign an extension. And then once the extension was signed and he was under contract, they were like, we don't really care what you got to say. And he's obviously upset, understandably so. But at the end of the day, we're going to see what's going to happen because both sides can play hardball here. And it's going to be interesting to see which sides play hardball more. Ultimately, I do think somebody's going to jump enough first round draft picks in Houston's lap that they're going to decide that that's worth more than their hard headedness. But we'll see.
And I do think the important thing is I think he's the domino that has to fall before anything else really happens. Right. I think he's got to, whatever's going to happen with him needs to happen first. Because you need that to kind of set up what happens with everything else. The second guy is Matt Stafford.
I actually think Stafford would be the first guy. So,
well, when we're looking at this logically, Deshaun Watson is the prize. Deshaun Watson is the platinum prize. So, or whatever you want to highest level of it, we'll say platinum. So you're wanting to see if you can get the platinum prize before you settle for the gold prize, which Matt Stafford is a gold prize in this situation. So if you feel like you have the ability to get Deshaun Watson, you're going to want to see what happens with him first. Now, we are talking about the NFL and we're all talking about NFL owners and NFL GMs. So somebody could feel like if they go out and bring in Matt Stafford, he's the guy that could win them a Super Bowl. If that's the case, someone could possibly move on him first. And it only takes one team to believe that, right? It only takes one. I've heard some reports that there's some serious negotiations between the Lions and the Rams. And the Lions want to get something done with Stafford before the Super Bowl. Truth to that, going to have to wait and see. But that's what I've been hearing. I know you've heard something different. But I do think that he comes at a better price point for people as far as trading for him. He can probably be had for a first round pick or maybe 2 second round picks or some combination of picks outside of multiple first round picks. So he may come at a premium where some teams feel more comfortable saying, I'll give this up for Matt Stafford versus giving up way more for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately, I think, what it comes down to. And that's why I said I think the Stafford actually goes first. Because what the biggest difference is, we know for a fact, the Lions had confirmed and Stafford has confirmed that both sides are in agreement that this is the best thing. Whereas with Deshaun Watson, there's still dispute about what Houston wants to do here. And I will not be surprised if Houston wants to hold out at least until the draft. We could see that trade happen as late as draft day. So we'll see or even draft night. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Whereas Stafford, I think, is a guy that while other people are sitting around, because we see this in the NBA every year when there's a big free agent on the market and, the top teams are always vying for that person. But what do other guys do? They go out and they sign next level stars to contracts up front because that person's like, well, I can wait. Or I can go ahead and get my money now when I know somebody's actually interested in me. And I think that's what we could see with Stafford. A team like the 49ers, for example, he's been linked to, we are a team that have consistently showed we do not want to give up a lot of draft capital. So I could see us maybe making a strong offer to get Matthew Stafford so that we wouldn't have to go and give up 3, 4 first round draft picks to get Deshaun Watson, even though he's clearly the better player of the two. Because we would probably feel like Matthew Stafford is good enough for us to win a Super Bowl with. So I think that he's going to go in first. And the Rams are another team like that, although I'm still confused about what they think they're going to do with Jared Goff's contract. But, that's what I think will happen. Is Stafford will end up going first, and then nothing else is going to get moved until the Deshaun Watson situation gets figured out.
So there hasn't been any actual reports or anything of this, but just based on how things are going, another guy that I think that could be getting moved is Matt Ryan. Atlanta could be looking to blow that up. And like I said, there hasn't been any there hasn't been any definitive Euro reports about that, but I'm just looking at the way things are going. New coaching staff there and everything, and they may want to, blow it up or get younger. So you could see Matt Ryan come on the market as well. And that could change a few things as well, because he may be a guy that some teams look at and say, I could win with Matt Ryan. That's another difference maker as far as decisions for teams who are looking for a quarterback. Every year, there's about 5 to 10 teams that really need to upgrade quarterback, whether it's short term or whether it's long term. So there are going to be guys out there that have experience that they may want to look at if they feel confident that these guys are going to be able to step up and do something. Along with Matt Ryan, who, like I said, just kind of throwing that out there. The next guy actually on my list of players is Dak Prescott. The reason I have Dak on my list is he's technically a free agent. He can be, of course, I don't think he's going to sign, because I don't think they're going to offer him what he wants, but they could franchise him again, but the franchise number is going to be going up next year. So that he may not want to, go that route. So I think there's a strong possibility that he could hit the open market. And I think that if he does, again, there's another guy. You may not feel he's quite as good as Deshaun Watson, but if you can bring him in and just pay him and you don't have to give up any assets, that becomes more interesting and more intriguing for a lot of teams. And also, you think about Deshaun Watson. He has a no trade clause. He's not going to go somewhere where the team is worse than the team he's already on. That doesn't make any sense for him.
No, when I look at the Atlanta situation, and I know these rumors have kind of been around for a while. People have speculated. Personally, I don't think that Matt Ryan's going anywhere. I'm not going to say never, because it could certainly happen. But I think that just based on the coach that they hired, they brought in a guy that they feel like can maybe get the offense to click now. And that offense, despite all the talent, has been a problem for a couple of years. So I think you brought in a guy specifically to work with what is there now. And if it doesn't work out this year, then maybe next year is the year that you blow it up. So that's what I think will happen in Atlanta. I don't think Matt Ryan will be available this year. He could definitely be on the market next year, though. When you look at a guy like Dak Prescott, I know everybody just kind of has this assumption that Dallas is going to automatically resign him. They're going to pay him all this money and everything else. Well, remember, Dallas, first of all, is only franchised him once, so they can franchise him again if they want to. They might as well go ahead and sign him if they're going to franchise him, but they could. That's an option. They could decide they're going to roll with Andy Dalton. They could decide they're going to draft a quarterback. They have, a pick where they're going to be able to draft a quarterback if they wanted to. They could try to make a trade for somebody or go after one of these guys that might be available in free agency. So you have a lot of different options if you're Dallas. I hate this idea that people have, they owe Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott made a lot of money this year. They don't owe him anything. It sucks for him that he got injured and that it's an injury that could have possibly ended his career, but they don't actually owe him anything. He got paid very well to not play football this season. He got paid a lot more money than I did to not play football this season. So from that standpoint, I don't think Dallas owes him anything. And I think if they feel like they can go another route and save some money and be able to invest in some other places on the team, particularly defense, because that defense was quite questionable this year. That's not out of
Highly
the question.
questionable.
Yeah, that's not out of the question. I mean, everybody just kind of assumes that that's going to be back, but I don't think it's this foregone conclusion. I'm not going to be surprised if they pay him, but I just don't think it's this foregone conclusion that a lot of people have.
So
Which,
definitely, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Um, I guess I feel as though Dak may feel that all the years that he was grossly underpaid, while he saw other people get paid in Dallas, he's not going to cut them any slack when it comes to negotiating a new contract.
or should he?
Now, as far as Dallas owing him, I am not of the opinion that they owe him, but I am of the opinion if you want his services, you're going to pay the going rate, period. There's not going to be any hometown discount.
Absolutely.
There's not going to be any undercutting me. You're going to pay me the going rate for a quarterback that has performed for you as well as I have, especially being underpaid every year until last year. So that's kind of where I sit as far as where I think Dak's sitting with that. But yeah, I don't think that I don't think it's a foregone conclusion he'll be back because, like you said, you're getting into a situation where you have guys out there that they may be comfortable going to get and playing with those guys. So I'm going to group a couple of guys here together. Some are starters, some are possible backups, maybe bridge starters. So I'm going to start with Cam Newton. Not the best showing last year, but was playing better until he got contracted COVID and came back. He just never seemed like the same guy after that. I've known some people who had COVID and heard, different research, and it does affect different people in different ways. It seems like it sapped a lot of his energy and strength for the rest of the season. He never could really get back to where he was before that. So they may allow for him to get an opportunity, and keep in mind, he's another guy you don't have to trade for. He's a free agent. You can sign him outright. You don't have to give up anything to get him. Jameis Winston had a year in New Orleans, didn't play a lot, but actually looked pretty good when he did play. Limited action, of course, but looked pretty good when he did play. And I think he was able to sit under that learning tree and maybe learn to look at the field a little bit differently, and maybe can cut down on those interceptions so he's not 30 for 30 again, or at least known as that. Also, Jacoby Brissett and Mitchell Trubisky, I'm going to group together. Basically, to me, they're the same player. And there's no disrespect to either one, but they're guys who can win some games if they have the right system, the right things around them, and you're allowing them to play to their strengths. And I don't think either one of those guys are going to be significant cost-wise. I mean, you're going to pay for a starter or a guy that could presumably come in and start, but I don't think either one of those guys are going to be guys that are going to come in and break the bank. And then three guys that I think could be high-end backups or bridge guys would be Andy Dalton, Tyrod Taylor, and Ryan Fitzmagic. Also guys who are going to be free agents this coming season.
Yeah, the two names that are most intriguing to me off that list, Jameis Winston is a guy that I almost wonder if New Orleans was hesitant to put him in much because they were able to see his improvements over the course of the season at practice. And they were like, hey, we're going to try to hide him away so that no one else realizes that he's improved quite a bit over the last year. And that's, their way of trying to get him to resign, because I haven't seen anything confirming that Drew Brees officially said he's retiring yet. So we're all assuming that that's going to be the case. Based on that last game, we all feel like that needs to be the case. But even a lot of Saints fans I know feel that way. But when you look at Drew Brees leaving, are you really going to trust the future of your franchise to Taysom Hill? Wouldn't be advisable. And Jameis is a guy that you could still bring in, even if it's just another 1-year contract. It obviously would have to be more than you paid him this year, but you could still pay him a fairly reasonable contract for this year. And, if he plays well, then you're going to have to end up paying him. But you can get that another year out of him at a fairly decent price, I would think, if you're New Orleans. And he might be more inclined to sign with them just because. The other guy is Fitzpatrick. The story with Fitzpatrick is always the same. He goes somewhere that has a young quarterback, He plays well for a while, has a couple bad games. They decide they're going to go with the rookie. He's back on the bench. This is the story of Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I think it would be interesting to see what team out there that maybe has a young quarterback that they don't feel is quite ready to get put on the field yet that might actually bring him in as a guy who can help them win now. So those are the two out of that group that interest me the most.
Yeah, for me, I actually am interested the most out of everyone, Tyrod Taylor. I think Andy Dalton's probably going to end up back in Dallas. I'll just go ahead and say that. Whether Dak Prescott is there or not, I think he'll end up back there. Tyrod Taylor interests me because he won the starting job, and then due to incompetence from the medical staff, he lost it because they, almost killed him,
Yeah.
for lack of better way. So he's shown in multiple situations that he can bow gracefully and allow the other guy to come in without the fanfare, without the hurt feelings and all that, understanding the business side of things. I think he's still got some good years that he can give the NFL. He'd be a good mentor. He seems to have that aura, the air about him, and that the confidence to be able to go in and say, hey, if I start half the season or I start the season and you take my job next year, it is what it is. I'll still mentor you. I'll still help you do everything I can to make the team, succeed. And I think that's important to have in a lot of places. One place he's been before, but that he would be great at is Cleveland. Another place that he would be good at is where he was at last year with the Chargers. These are teams that have little young quarterbacks. A third one where he may be able to come in, start a few games if Joe Burrow isn't ready for next year, the beginning of the year, is the Bengals. So I think those are options where Tyrod can slide right in, help out. He's been there before, but Buffalo as well. Jacksonville, they're drafting a young quarterback. I don't think they have any confidence in any other quarterbacks on that roster. So maybe maybe the Jets, if they're going to keep Sam Darnold or not. So, a couple of teams that could be on the lookout for a bridge gap starter or a good solid backup that if need be can play, but that'll still not come in with that mentality of like, I can do it, but I really don't want to. It hurts my feelings when I get benched. It does not seem to bother Tyrod Taylor. And if it does, he is doing a magnificent job of hiding it, that it bothers him, to not be the starter. So I think he's a guy that's very interesting to me just because, hey, I don't really care. I'm here. I'll do whatever needs to be done. If that's start, I'll start. If that's come off the bench, I'll come off the bench. If that's just be a mentor, hey, I'm living my dream, baby. That's what he looks like. I mean, to me. So that's the most interesting out of that group to me. And then we have a couple of other guys that I think could be on the move. And that's going to be two guys that are always going to be linked. Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. Jared Goff's competition has basically been opened up. So you're basically saying, we don't even trust this guy to be the starter. You have the whole Matthew Stafford rumors. He hasn't played necessarily bad, but he hasn't played necessarily well either. He's kind of been the definition of mediocre, and you need a little bit more, I think, out of your quarterback position. And then the almost MVP Carson Wentz, who basically, to me, has lost the locker room and the respect of most people he played with previously and was in the locker room last year. And definitely, I believe in my heart of hearts, got the coach that won in their only Super Bowl in the history of the organization fired because he didn't want to start him. So, these are two guys who probably could both benefit from a change of scenery. One, I feel, is probably more likely to get that change of scenery, and that's Jared Goff. I believe Carson Wentz is going to just basically be able to continue doing what I feel like he's been doing, and that's control the organization from the quarterback position, hold it hostage, and not allow the team to move in the right direction.
The funny thing to me is when I look at those two guys, though, I feel like Wentz is the guy who would benefit the most from a move because he clearly needs to just get outside of the system in Philadelphia and maybe get a chance to go somewhere else and restart. Jared Goff, mean, how many opportunities are you going to go to that actually put you in a better position than getting coached by Sean McVay? Unless you have a chance to be under Kyle Shanahan or Andy Reid or what's his name in New Orleans, Sean Payton. Unless you're under like one of those guys, you're not going to a better situation. There's not a whole lot of situations out there that are going to be better for a quarterback than playing under Sean McVay. If you can't excel in Sean McVay's system, I don't really have confidence you can excel anywhere. So that's why I was saying earlier with the contract that he's under, because he's guaranteed like $40 million, a little over $40 million over the next 2 seasons. That's a lot of money to pay to a guy who has not won anything.
Well, what do you mean, man? There's one place where he could always go and be successful. That would be with the guy who's gonna have his team play smart, and they're going to simplify the plays for them and make them more difficult for the other team.
I know y'all heard Willa. I know y'all heard Willa Taggart.
I just joke when I say that, but nah, yeah. I do think that Wentz just, man, the situation is just bad, and it's not because I'm a fan of the team, but just looking from the outside. Seriously, you were part of the early season when they won the Super Bowl, but you weren't part of them actually winning the Super Bowl. You were hurt then. Also, a lot of guys sided with Foles kind of in those things the next year, and he kind of had to get rid of Foles to kind of put that behind him. And like I said, it seems like everybody's a little soft on him and allowing him to not toughen up there. And it's probably best for his long-term career if he does leave. But you're going to have to do something about that contract. You're going to have to give back that signing bonus, maybe recoup that from your new team or restructure your contract. You'll have to do some things to make that happen. The new coach has not confirmed that he's going with him, but he's not denied it yet either. So we'll see. You still have Jalen Hurts there as well. And I think that shadow of having another guy who come in and take your job is going to, whether you like it or not, Carson Wentz, force you out before the season's over or the trade deadline comes.
Yeah, it's funny. I know my Niners have been mentioned a couple times for guys like Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford, and even briefly when Aaron Rodgers set the world on fire to try to negotiate his new contract. But I'm also going to be really curious to see, because I think one of these veteran quarterbacks is going to end up being a backup in San Francisco. So it would be interesting to see which one of these guys might be. Because let's be honest, we saw all we needed to see of both Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard last year to know that neither one of those guys are guys you want to have to depend on for any stretch of time. Let's just be honest about it. No offense to either one of those guys, but I'm just keeping it real. So we could actually see two of these quarterbacks that we talked about today end up in red and gold next year.
It's a possibility.
So, man, we are actually at our hour. Went by super, super fast. Hope you guys enjoyed the show this week. I would have loved to have us dive a little bit deeper into some of the Super Bowl storylines, but, that's what happens when you are filming so far in advance due to different things going on. I have some personal issues with family I have to take care of, which is why we are not doing the show live. But nonetheless, we appreciate y'all tuning in. And I know, Cole, you've been in the chat here talking to people, which, you really haven't when I'm saying this, but you will by the time people hear. So it's like
getting it in.
Yes.
Getting it, bro. Getting it.
Like Matrix over here, bro. It's so weird, But we will be back, hopefully live. Just kind of depending on what happens with my schedule. Hopefully the following week we'll be back live. We will make it work out for y'all. But make sure you stay tuned in. If you haven't already, man, hit that subscribe button down there in the bottom right-hand corner. And that will... Yeah, and then that will let you know. YouTube will come up and say, yo, the PlayCallers is live. Tune in. That's how you get your reminders. But make sure you... All the way live. Make sure y'all hit that. And let us know who you think is going to win the Super Bowl this year. Let's see your picks. Get them in before the Super Bowl happens. Don't be trying to come back to the replay like at halftime trying to put your picks in because we're gonna call you out if you do. Just so y'all know, that's we're not gonna slide with that one, bro. Y'all gonna have to let us know something. Be just our luck. We both up and pick Kansas City, and some major things gonna go on during the week that's gonna completely blow up our pick, and we're both gonna look like idiots. But it is what it is.
Well, it looks solid on Saturday. So I'll say that it looks solid on Saturday evening. How about that?
Yeah, it looks good a whole 8 days before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Just remind people that our picks were made 8 days before the Super Bowl. Just in case, right? Before Rob comes up in here telling us, I told y'all Patrick Mahomes was healthy.
you mean Captain Obvious?
Captain Obvious, yeah.
So, I think he's still waiting for that award too, by the way.
Oh, let's see. Best I got for you, Rob. I know who's not happy about that right now.
Well, I've got one for you too, Rob.
Oh,
thumbs up, buddy.
Well, if we're doing that, man, here you go. I got 2 of those to spare for you, man.
So there's 3 thumbs up, Rob. What an award!
You should feel honored. 3 thumbs up and a Lakers trophy.
Yeah, you got 3 thumbs up. The very first winner of the 3 thumbs up award.
Which I'm sure that he's actually going to probably be like, no, that's not a Lakers trophy. That's a LeBron trophy. Because, he can't stand the Lakers, but he's a LeBron fan.
I really don't understand how that works.
But must feel so conflicted.
I digress.
You must feel so. Yeah. I mean, I guess I understand it. I mean, I'm a Lakers fan, but I don't really care about LeBron. I mean, my caring about LeBron started the day he put on purple gold and ends the day he takes it off. Outside of that, I don't care about LeBron. Like, as long as you are a member of the Lakers organization, I'll root for you. As soon as you're not a Laker anymore, I don't really care. But man, it is time to go ahead and wrap it up. We will see y'all back next Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, we'll unbox reminding you that when the clock runs down,
heroes arise.
Stats will lie.
But sometimes, wow.
Nothing is for show.
There is no doubt.
And until the clock runs out,
it's him and I.
The PlayCallers. Y'all better know that. ATL to Charlotte, North Carolina. We run this.
Don't forget, not this Friday. Next Friday, we're live. This week that you're watching, not live.
If you're still watching and you're wondering why we haven't answered your questions, it's because you're not paying attention, because we are not live right now. This is a pre-recorded video.
But I'm still answering your questions in the chat.
Yes, he'll still be answering your chat. So the show is not live. Cool will be live, but not on video, but in the chat. It's live chat, pre-recorded video. So, and if you're watching this on replay, then it's not, nothing's live at all. It's just, you're just watching a replay at the replay. So,
and I'm not typing when you're there.
It's the replay, baby. I'll let y'all next week.